Okay, welcome. I'm going to do my presentation about the game I've created for TDDD 23. I've created the game by myself. It's called Regular Leap, and it's supposed to be a multiplayer platformer where you can use physics-based objects to throw at each other and create some interesting obstacle courses, and yeah, you're supposed to race to the goal. So I'll just go through the basic game mode and how the blueprints work, and then maybe we'll just look overall what I've created model wise, and how the collisions and physics and replication works. So to begin with, to make the multiplayer side of this game work, I've scrapped the standard blueprints for the game modes, and I've just created a basic game mode setup here, where if a player logs into the server, it is added to the number of players inside the game, and also if they switch map or something like that. And what happens when a player joins with a player controller, it begins, and in the player controller we check if it's the local player. We call a respawn function to the server and then cast it to to the server, and then we call a function inside the game mode blueprint called respawn player, and here I just split up the spawn into two different parts. I have one for the initial spawning in, and then another spawn for when the transform is updated for the player. So if a player has entered into a checkpoint, we want to spawn that player on the transform where the checkpoint is located, so that's why I split it up. I have an active ragdoll function, which seemed to have a little bit of problems when I tried to package the game, so for now I've disconnected it. Okay, so that's the game mode and the player controller. And if we look at the third person blueprint, this has like the basic setup is the same as the standard one for Unreal Engine. I used a add-on for Blender to like import the skeleton from Unreal Engine's mannequin to Blender, and then you can apply it to your character. So when you import the character to Unreal Engine, you can use all the pre-existing animations for the standard mannequin on your own mesh. That is pretty nice. It saves a lot of time. I found a problem when implementing the multiplayer that somehow it didn't cast to the server owning player controller the first time this was called, so I just loop it in case it doesn't. That fixed it. So if we look at some of the things I've implemented, we got the active ragdoll, and what this does is it limps all the bones over the pelvis, so the player kind of just flops around. and yeah, it simulates, so it kind of simulates physics on the upper side of the body. So in the game you can grab a couple of objects and throw them at your opponents. So how I did that is I use a vector pointing out from the player camera, and it traces a line from the camera. So when you point at one of the items you can pick up, and if you are close enough, you will be able to pick up the item, and it will follow you. So here's the update position. So if so when you've grabbed an object, on each tick it follows the camera on a certain distance from it. And then I've created an impulse, so when you want to release the object, if you're carrying it, so I have this boolean that checks if you're holding an object and you release it, it's going to release the component at an impulse that launches the object forward, and will set that the player is no longer holding an object. So the death, straightforward, like if you fall out of the map and the actor is if the actor is destroyed, you call upon death. It casts to the game mode and loops through all the existing players and get the controlled pawn, and if it has been destroyed, which it is if it falls outside of the map, we know that that's the player we want to respawn. And yeah, then it calls the respawn function, which we looked at before, and the local player's spawn transform. If a player collides with an object that is supposed to ragdoll it, like if I open a map with an obstacle, and well, that's okay. The frame rate there wasn't great, but yes, you could see if you get hit, you become ragdolled, and that's what this function do. It simulates the physics based on collision capsules around your character that collides with the ground and the other bones, yeah, we simulate physics. We turn off the movements, and this was a solution to the camera not following the character when it gets ragdolled. And then I have a small delay, and then it calls to another function, calls to the server, and then to a function that multicasts to the rest of the players, where the character then gets up again. So most of this stuff is trivial, because what I planned to do was to create animations for the character getting up from the back and from the front, and this was to calculate whether the player was laying on his back or on his stomach. But that I didn't have time to do that. So one-man team on this, and reading other courses, of course. So yeah, the only thing it does now is just reset the rotation and transform so it stands up again, and then activates movement again. And lastly, here we have some functionality for when we enter the victory trigger. It needs to call this to the server and multicast it to the other player. So for the person who wins, we activate the winner widgets and sounds. If you are not the and you'll also get the winner boolean, and the loser is called for all players as well, but the way I solved it was if you're the winner, it won't run the loser stuff. Okay. So now we've gone through all of that, and we could here's the checkpoint component. What it does is I need a way for it to update for only the local player. So I have an overlap function that triggers when you enter the checkpoint, and then it calls to the server, and it takes only the player that overlapped, calls to that person's third-person character, and updates that player's spawn transform to the position. How does it look on time? Okay, I'm gonna try to run through some of the last things here as fast as possible. So some of the other things, I have some previous experience in Blender, so I decided to create some stuff on my own. You might have noticed the character, and for some reason the FPS on the screen recording is terrible, but anyways, so I created my own character, and I have these barrels and boxes that you can pick up and throw, then some obstacles, and I might just go into I'll go into the obstacles very quickly, but so for the obstacles, to create a collision functionality in Unreal Engine, you create two duplicates, one that overlaps with everything and has no collision, and one that doesn't. And the overlapping one, you create a overlap function that calls the ragdoll function in the third-person blueprint. So if you overlap with one of the obstacles, the player gets ragdolled, and then the other duplicate that is placed, that is rotating on the exact same position, that one has collision activated. So you get ragdolled, and then you get launched away by the obstacle. Yeah, and then just simple rotations, things like that. Yeah, and I've created a couple of maps now for the game. I mean, it's not some kind of massive super game, but I created a couple of maps, and I think it's a nice little start as a one-man developer team here. Yeah, so I created this little nice guy, some decor. We got these flags, and now they look like this, but if you turn on the game, it oh man, it really doesn't. Okay, well, then they are physics based in the animations, and yep. Okay, so yep, got some maps here. Couple of materials, all of them are very basics. I got a couple of free PBR skins from Ambient CGI, I believe the website is called. Otherwise they're mostly just simple color materials. All the platforms and stuff I just created just to make them look a little bit better. I created some obstacles in Blender, and then I subdivided the edges to get the smooth shadows, and some material with a high roughness to get this kind of rubbery or smooth look to them. And yeah, I wanted to create a fun goal that was pretty apparent that that's where you want to go, so I created these rings that spin and some flags. Yeah, the rotating balls. I got some rotating and moving platforms to spice up the maps. I got a couple of sounds in the game right now, not too many. They could definitely be improved. Let's see. I created some simple widgets in Photoshop. So I have a couple of different widgets that trigger when you win and when you lose, and yeah, maybe I forgot something, but hopefully this covered the most important aspects of the game logics, and I'll make sure that the demo video don't have this bad frame rate when you play the game. Okay, thank you for listening. Bye.